Thank you for joining the Prosperous Sellers podcast with special guest Andrew Morgans from Marknology. Andrew, so say hello to the audience.
Thank you, Steve. Happy to be here and just excited to talk some shop today.
Yeah, same here. For those that don't know me, I'm Steve Yates. I'm CEO of Prime Guidance, and Andrew's become a friend. I met him a few years ago on a fishing and hunting trip, and just a good all-around guy. I'm really impressed with his background and where he's built his business. And I think it'll be fun just talking shop and learning some things from a pro.
Yeah, so, thank you, Steve. It's nice to be here, and it's a small world. You know, it's like I'm a real estate investor, and one of the guys in the office saw a picture of us posting, I think, in Hawaii, and was like, "Is that the Prime Guidance guy?" And I was like, "How do you know Steve?" And he grew up in Wichita, and like it was a connection of I think maybe your son-in-law or your daughter. But it's always fun to connect, like sometimes outside the Amazon industry, and just like world is still small, here in Kansas City or in Texas. But that fishing trip was the highlight of my year. I'll tell you that much. I just hadn't done anything like that in a while for myself. And being around a bunch of e-com, Amazon sellers, service providers was too much fun. Too much fun. I still think about it. So,
yeah, it was a good trip. You need to decompress sometimes, and what better to be out in God's country, on the water, bright and early, and just having a good time. And
yeah, I think if you're in the brand building game, like which we are, sure, we're technicians on the Amazon platform, but we're also brand builders, and you have to like have you have to have inputs that are like inspiring, that are just creative. And for me, nature is like a big one. Just shutting the laptop, shutting the phone down. You can work super hard behind the screen, but that's more productivity than it is like inspiration or creative ideas or like storytelling. These are the aspects that make a good brand. And for me, I don't know, I just love being out there on the water.
Yeah, same here. And I love it. We were with a lot of other agencies and stuff, and I love that this industry is so friendly to one another. And there's a lot of people that need help in this space. I mean, we all know how confusing Amazon and these other marketplaces have become. So we learn from each other, we help each other grow, and have a good time fishing. So
yeah, I think there's like, and this doesn't even mean size. Like there's a lot sub 500,000 or sub $1 million as an agency. So a couple of guys or girls like running a team. I think there's 550 agencies. I saw an agency report come out worldwide, and if you understand that there's 5 million sellers just on Amazon.com, maybe more than that. I could be way off, but do the math, right? Like, do the math of doing it themselves versus doing it in-house versus needing help. If all 500 of us took, 100 of them, we wouldn't even scrape the bottom of the barrel. So I think a lot of that goes into this industry being like that and being open. We've got a couple of rivals. Maybe they're even self-made for me. Like, just I'm a competitive guy, and I look to them and be like, oh, I like what they've built, not out of envy or jealousy, just like I want to build something like that. Or maybe the way they approach certain things is not my style, but generally, and it's nice, I think, on the service-based side, there is a capacity for us to work in a custom way with brands, because that's what we really are. Like, sure, we're on the marketplace, but we're custom for each brand based on what they need. Not software, not a SaaS, which has its upside, but a downside is that you can have unlimited customers and you can always be competing. I think on the service side, it's like, look, there is a level where we're at a max level of brands we can work with, or output we can do, and so that also creates kind of a more collaborative community, and I honestly really enjoy it. I've been in a couple other industries before e-commerce, and this one feels unique to me.
For sure. I know I was really intrigued by your kind of upbringing and how you got to where you're at today. Maybe the audience would love to hear a little background, as deep or as little as you want to share.
Oh yeah, I honestly have, as I've shared it more, it definitely was something I kept close to the chest, but as I shared it more, I realized there's so many people I can relate to a certain portion of it at least, you know. And just quickly, I was born in Montreal. My parents were in a French immersion school. They were there in Montreal for 7 years, or in Quebec, Quebec City, actually, for 7 years, learning French. And they had a passion to go to French Africa and be missionaries. So they went to seminary. And by the time I was 3, we were in Cameroon in West Africa, the French side. Since, you know, would always go back and forth to Kansas City, I guess, between mission trips. So Kansas City's always been home. Grew up the most of my life in Africa. They taught at schools. So like kind of Christian curriculum, Cameroon, Botswana, Moscow, for a small stint, like right in the 90s, right after the fall of the Soviet Union, which is a crazy, crazy time. And then Congo, DRC Congo. Congo is the size of 1/2 of the United States. If you actually blow it up to its size and mash it up against the US, like do a quick Google or something, you'll see it's half of the United States. So it's this absolute massive country. Think of it like 25 of our states, you know. It's just super huge. And there were no missionaries there at the time. And so, you know, my dad is kind of a trailblazer, a little wild card. And he wanted, there's a lot of Christian population there that just didn't have leadership or seminaries or schools like that, and he had a call to kind of go there. So I was there my teenage years till I was 16, and I think it's a big part of how I think as an entrepreneur, how I move. Growing up with parents like that give it all, made me want to like have a little something, I think, in some ways, but also like spirit of service and the spirit of giving and spirit of community building is like something that's been wired in me. Came back to Kansas City for a year and a half, finished high school, obviously massive culture shock, coming out of a war zone to, you know, Liberty in Kansas City used to be the 7th best city to raise a family and to send your kids to school, just like a suburb here in Kansas City. So going from a war zone to that was just night and day. Then I went to school in Hawaii. Actually, I got my associates at the University of Hawaii, and then finished school back in Kansas City. Kind of like my dad moved back. It was kind of this thing, taking care of my grandfather, and finished school at Park and a computer science degree. Got out of school, was touring, playing music ever since I got back from Hawaii. Was going to school online, and no one was really doing computer science. Was a broad degree at that time. It was not so specific. And when I got out of school, I was tired of being poor on the road touring, playing music, and I was like, I'm gonna get a real job with my degree. Got a job within like a week of looking at that time, because tech professionals were just in high demand. And I started working at a NOC. I don't know if people know what a NOC is, but it's like a networking operations control something. That's what it stands for. And I was making more money than I ever had. I was a band guy on the road, you know, a server, but I hated the job. And so, you know, I worked there a year. They're trying to promote me, and I was just like, if this is what IT looks like, I'm gonna quit. It was like sitting 12-hour shifts, waiting on stuff to break. And if you understand what I do now, it was the opposite of that. You know, it was tech, it was computer, but it was like quiet room in the dark, cold. You're wearing a hoodie, the lights are off. You're just looking at the screen. You know, you can't have your phone out because it's high security. You can't be doing all this other stuff that an ADHD brain wants to do. It's just like sit there and watch this monitor, maybe watch Cops on subtitles or something, you know. And I just was like, you know, Lord, like, you know, just like, this is it. Like, I picked the wrong degree. Like, you know, I'm just like contemplating that. Well, I was dating a girl at the time very seriously, and I said, I need to try something else. And there was an opportunity in Florida. I was applying at a bunch of places, and there was an opportunity to work at a startup. They sold car parts online on a website, and I was employee number 3. I went down there, took the job. They put me in charge of Amazon and eBay with kind of these product lines that they had, these manufacturers. And I was messing with Photoshop, put my first combo deal together on eBay with like a blue border, a trailer hitch, a wiring, some trailer lights, made my first combo, you know. And in a way of them shipping just once, and combining the shipping, I was able to lower our price than what everybody else was for selling it as a single. And you know, that works today.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Mhm.
But I found a way that we were a newer player into this trailer hitch market that really had two major competitors. Think of it like Nike and Adidas, and I'm coming in there as Reebok, is what it felt like. And but I was able to, with our combined price of a bundle, actually come in lower than if people were just trying to buy those items outright. And at this time on the internet, car parts weren't online. This is like you're calling into O'Reilly or whatever and ordering parts based on your model of car, and they're telling you
Mhm.
what number to buy. There wasn't photos, there wasn't descriptions, there wasn't anything. So
Mhm.
it was really like learning Excel, concatenating Photoshop, Paint. I was hooked though, because like, you work on an item, it sells in 15 minutes, and I'm just like, what? My work can literally like be profitable or be fruitful within 15 minutes. Never got that fast of a feedback loop before.
Yeah.
And it was as much as I wanted to work or as fast as I wanted to work, I was getting results. And long story short, within a year, I'd grown Amazon eBay by $1 million, from zero to $1 million. I know it's taking a minute, but it's fun to share. I moved from there to back to Kansas City. The girlfriend I was with wanted to be back home. I took more of a corporate job at a toy company, and they had 4 brands doing about 10 million as a company. A couple hundred employees. Really, for a $10 million company, it was still big. They'd been in retail, and they were dying. And e-commerce became like their lifeline. And so again, in the same spot, I'm putting products online, adding photos, keywords, nothing rocket science. And mind you, there's no one on YouTube saying what to do or how to do it. This is a wide open channel. Like there's not even a speaking event about Amazon at this time. Amazon services wasn't a term. Amazon SEO, Amazon PPC. These things didn't exist. And I was studying e-commerce like a crazy person, obsessed with it. And there just wasn't content out there, I can tell you. But we grew sales by $1 million. The next 2 years, $1 million and $1 million. So in 3 years' time, I've grown sales on Amazon eBay by $1 million each year, just myself, without help.
Mhm.
Have a team. And I was going through a breakup now at this point, and I was obsessed, and I just went all in. And I think I went all in. I had a job making a little bit less than I did at the Knock, but I was in something I was super passionate about. It was like up to my creativity. I had to be technical to understand like affiliate commissions and things you have to do as an e-commerce manager, and understand, okay, what's the buyback window on a retargeting campaign, and understand profitability, and be able to use your software. But it was really any way I can come up with an image or a cooler title or a cool way of describing a lot of products at one time. We were finding wins. And it's one thing to be like going through a breakup, a heartbreak, and then also being the hero at a company for your work. Like that was something that like I really latched onto during that time, was like really like having company-wide meetings, and they're asking me to stand up because we had another
You helped them turn it around. Yeah.
crushing quarter, and being part of that team was like real exciting to me. We were winning together, so to speak. And but I'm also learning. I'm working inside of a brand versus like an Amazon seller at those times, was really pioneering the space. But I was working with a brand, and this is 15 years ago, 14 years ago. So I'm working with the customer service department, the design team, the marketing team, the bookkeeper conversations, the brand manager conversations, the outsourced partners. It was like, and I'm in the middle of them all resisting change and seeing all those conversations happen. But like the CEO's giving me kind of that black card, go do what you want, you're winning, and everyone else is resisting it. The sales guys, because I'm kicking their resellers off of Amazon, because I'm like, why would we be selling wholesale to these guys so they can go sell retail when I'm selling retail myself? These things that are common today, but were like just common sense for me when I was like really trying to be great at my job.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that set me up for Marknology in regards to very early on, my experience being from inside a brand, a retail brand, trying to get into e-commerce, and they had a warehouse right in the basement of this company, like a really big operation. So I was able to see all the moving parts and understand what kind of conversations brands are having as they try to move to Amazon. Like from having that inside perspective of inside the brand instead of just an agency employee that learned from being at an agency or an Amazon seller. So it was that mixed with I got top 10 in the world on Upwork because no one else was doing Upwork at that time that was in the Amazon space. And so in the digital marketing category, I just shot up to the top. And it was a combination of $1 million wins, seeing crazy success at companies, working with some companies on Upwork that had no business working with me. I'm a nobody out of the Midwest. Like, why am I working with Adidas or Squeeza, Swiss, or like these companies? Well, it's because I know all these brands are going to need Amazon help. They're all going to need this, and that was kind of like the writing on the wall for me. I also got a 20-cent raise after my second $1 million growth year. And I was just like, look, this isn't going to give me the freedom I want out of life for me and my family. I left, started Marknology a couple months before I left as far as like a freelancer. And since then, my family works with me. They've come and joined me. We're a team of 30. And we've been building brands for the last decade on the platform. And, obviously going from when I knew absolutely nothing when I left US Toy about business, about entrepreneurship, about leading a team, community, all the things that go into business. I was just passionate about brand building. And honestly, I love the aspect of helping people. And I know that's a bit of a monologue, but I give you a lot to think about there. That that's the real story is, and if that's inspiring to anyone else, is like I didn't know anything about anything. I had passion, and I do think passion even today can get you a long, long way in a world where we're just over inundated with information.
Yeah, I think that's great, and that's one of the things I like about your story is you've learned a lot from some of the challenges and some of the unique things that you've been involved in. And I feel like it's very similar to me. And you also have a heart to serve. I volunteer with all kinds of organizations, love to serve. It's kind of in my DNA, it's in my heart. And I feel like it's the same for you. Yeah. That's what drives you. It's not just a money thing. There's a lot of agency owners out there that it's all about dollars and cents. They just want to be the biggest and most glamorous agency out there. I really get fueled by solving unique challenges and helping people grow businesses because it kind of leans on my heart to serve and that's rewarding to me and that's what drives me. And
us being good at our jobs means what that means to be good at this means that we're good. We've been building businesses successfully for others. That's what I think about it is building a community internally for my team and family and, the Marknology team and building a life for them. But also everyone we serve, we wouldn't be in business if we weren't helping them get results and conquer things and fix challenges. And that's something I've learned about myself over the years is like, I was great in the NOC at the network control room. I just was like, I can do so much more to help people than this. Then, the bank on the other end of the line, because we worked with banks at MasterCard, they weren't happy. They weren't like thankful. They weren't like, it was just like a stressful situation all the time. Not to say it's not. But, it was a bank guy to an employee that doesn't care at a company that's like massive, right? Versus getting to work with brands of all shapes and sizes, getting to help people go from local to national to international. In the community, it's allowed me to meet by, I grew up as a kid in Africa. I've always felt like an international citizen of sorts. And it just makes sense to me looking back, like e-commerce is such an international career choice or international play. Just was in South Africa and they've launched Amazon South Africa there. And I just had a call with Vincenzo, in London, who's all over the place. And my team is from all over the world. And it's just a good fit. It just is a good fit for a Midwestern boy. That's always felt like, the world is, I'm a citizen of the world to like, it's just a lot of fun. I don't think a lot of the other industries get to play like we do sometimes.
Yeah, we're very blessed to be in the environment we're in for sure. I know, one of the events you and I went to was BDSS, $1 Billion Seller Summit in Hawaii. And I know we're both going to be at Prosper Show. We're both speaking at that event here in a couple of weeks. What do you think for some of the people that are listening in, trying to say, okay, how can I get more engaged in the industry? How can I like up my knowledge game and so forth? What are some of the the key events you think they should definitely have on their radar?
Well, I think there's like the BDSS event is not a beginner event, for example. Like this is Kevin King's $1 Billion Seller Summit event. I think it can be great because you're around people. If you were a beginner, it'd be great for you because you're going to be around people that are better than you in the room, but a lot of the sellers there are making more money in their businesses than even I am in my agency, don't get me wrong. Everyone has something to teach everyone, but it's just like, it's a powerful conference. I went to the European Sellers Conference in Prague that just finished this year. It just finished in March, like last week. I loved that event, full of Amazon sellers of all shapes and sizes. Not sure if everyone listening is in Europe or they want to take a trip to Europe, but for me, that conference was packed with information. I will put it at the top of my list, like as far as conferences to go to. The Prosper Show is close to my heart because it was maybe one of the first that I went to years ago, and I've continued to go, and I've got opportunity. I had a goal when I first went as a young agency owner. It was only software sponsors that spoke on the stage there at the time, and it's sold and changed quite a bit since then. But I had a goal that I wanted to speak there. And, a couple years ago, I accomplished that. And, without a PR person, without someone reaching out, like I just want to be invited, to speak. Yeah. That's a show for me as I've grown that has been just great for me. I think all of them have different levels of value, right? I guess like BDSS, for example, is advanced tactics and strategies and things like that. The Prosper Show has a variety of things like that. It's amazing for networking. It's amazing for meeting service providers. Like you need certain tools to be really good at Amazon and in the marketplaces. And that's a place where you can get in one spot introductions to so many different vendors, service providers. You can walk that floor. Those are both Amazon events. I do think there's another event going on simultaneously as Prosper next week or the following week called Shop Talk. And I do think that Shop Talk is a really great show, a little bit more generalized in regards to e-commerce than just Amazon specific. And it's really often on a lot of those off Amazon topics like TikTok, D2C, Shopify, blogging, SEO, influencer marketing. So it kind of just depends on where you're at in your journey. I think, a great place to start before you ever spend money going to an event and getting overwhelmed is just like, get on LinkedIn, start following a couple people in the industry, like do some searching, follow a couple people and find some podcasts. Find some podcasts to just like this one, just listen into. You'll start to hear some of the players that they share across the different podcasts. You'll start to find a personality type that you like and ingest a lot there. And then I think if you go to a conference with a base of knowledge, you're gonna learn a lot more than if you kind of go in just real green.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that it's really important that people learn in a variety of ways. So podcasts, webinars, blog posts, like do all that, right? Squeeze it in. You're going to learn a lot of different perspectives. To your point, each of them have their pros and cons. $1 Billion Seller Summit, one of the most advanced. So if you're really a large scale, advanced seller, that you're going to be able to talk shop with other people that are going to push you sharper. As they say, iron sharpens iron. It's going to help you get that little edge that you need to grow faster.
I love being in that room. I don't know if I had been in a room where the average, if you remember the average, I think it might have been like 7 million. I know there's a couple of people offsetting the average, but it's definitely over $1 million, in that room. And that was just a cool feeling.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really good. And Kevin throws amazing events too. Prosper Show, it was one of the founders. I know James Thompson, who founded the show, and it's always been a broad show. So you can go there and do a lot. There's a lot of networking. There's a lot of show like events, parties, and different events. You can network with other sellers, and I feel like that's probably where a lot of sellers get the most benefit is just connecting over lunch or over some drinks or something and talking shop with other people in a non-competitive environment. And of course, the content is broad. It's, they're going to mix in this year, Walmart and TikTok and, other marketplaces. It's not just Amazon focused. And I like to tell people, like, don't strive to be a great Amazon seller. Strive to be a great brand, and that brand should be where your customers are spending your time and money, and that needs to be more holistically thinking, what percentage of my customers are going to Walmart? What percentage of my customers are going on TikTok because it's a younger consumer that wants to engage in video content? Figure out these things, and then just make sure you're present where your customers are. And Shop Talk is actually one of the best shows I've ever been to. I've been there many times, and it is definitely more of a retail show. It's kind of all encompassing, not Amazon or marketplace specific in any way, but it's a well-run show and with a lot of great speakers and content and the expos.
Very high quality speakers.
So,
I agree.
Yeah.
You got to find it. I think you got to find a couple heroes, whether they're like ones you've met or not, mentors, whatever you want to call it. And, pursue them, find where they're at, not fanboy kind of stuff, but like, you need to, if you're just listening to everyone, that's not helpful either. I think it's about finding a couple, being like, hey, they've built a brand that I aspire to be to. I'm going to follow like their content or something like that. For me, that's how it's been. It's been like, I've got a couple of people that I look up to what they've built and I'm like, wow. And I follow them. I think being specific like that can be helpful. Picking like a track, like you said, is brand. And then how are you going to market with that brand? Retail or e-commerce generally. And then if it's e-commerce, is it D2C? Is it marketplace? Is it TikTok shop? Is it Walmart? So it all starts with brand at the end of the day. And then it's really like, the path forward from there.
Yeah. I always tell our clients and our consultants, I want you to think about, how am I going to learn to be a good marketplace expert, not how am I going to copy the latest example that someone shared on what you should do for content or advertising or whatever. If you really train yourself to say, this is a dynamic environment, I can't just model what someone else did and it's going to see success in my case. But I need to figure out how. You need to be inquisitive and figure out how do I figure things out. I need to research good and bad, pros and cons to different scenarios, and test and learn and realize that the shopping behavior is much different based on the customer experience. Like, for example, typically when you advertise a product with like the multiple sizes, multiple colors, multiple packs, whatever, you're going to want to, advertise them, together and let Amazon choose up what they want. And then, the consumer will gravitate to, the price point once they're on the page that works for them. But recently a client had a situation where their product, it really didn't work that way. The consumer, whatever you advertise, the consumer tended to buy because so if you advertise the cheapest option, they tended to buy that because they hadn't had any exposure to the brand. So they weren't willing to trade up. And it just, it was you learning that, hey, this is not a normal category, something people don't even know. They're not searching for it. So when they do see it, they're going to test. They're going to, like, supplements sometimes, really unique supplements. You need to have a trial size.
Yeah.
And that can be really important to get that product in their hands, but that's not your long-term initiative to sell a whole bunch of trial size items on Subscribe and Save. So you have to have a strategy that is very specific to your use case. And, when you're thinking about, how do I learn from these shows? How do I learn from these podcasts and so forth? It's understanding those dynamic elements are always changing. And, what you need to write for your copywriting on a computer is much different than apparel, for example. If you'll fail if you just copy one person's example of how they succeeded.
100%. I think it's a good place to start, is that, like, pick someone successful and try to emulate what they're doing, but understand that is a starting point. That's it. It's not somewhere you're supposed to stop, and you're exactly right. Like, food is another great example of that, where, a lot of times you're starting with a variety pack, if you can, of seasonings or sauces or chips or whatever it is. And then you're trying to get them to buy that bigger size in the Subscribe and Save. There's tons of methodology around pricing. And what I've learned is, what I talk about, what I think about, is what we sell, right? If I'm talking about content, all of a sudden we got a whole bunch of content business coming in the door. If I talk about PPC, all of a sudden we're landing PPC clients, PPC specific. If I start talking about catalog issues, international expansion, and omni-channel, well, that's the business we're getting, and so the same as the brands that are selling, if you're talking about your value, well, you're going to sell a cheaper item. If you're talking about, why you're premium and exclusivity and all of that, you're going to sell the higher price stuff, and so it's in simple terms. I think of it like, when I try to share stuff, I try to give a variety of stories because I think stories are easier for people to relate to. Not that I'm trying to be vague about my tactics on Amazon. It's more so that I don't want you to copy exactly what I'm saying. I want you to take the intent behind the story, the message in the story that I'm sharing, and apply that. I think of biblical, right? And I think of Jesus's parables. He wasn't telling even stories that were true, I think, for a reason. He was talking about parables in a way to get the crowd that was listening to him to understand what he was trying to say and apply it to their own lives, not just this exact story as by the facts and to be politically correct and this and that. It was like, it's at the time, what channel are you on? Are you on Walmart? Are you on Amazon? Like to compare what audience, what message are you trying to convey to them? Speak in their language, not like literal language, but the terminology the way that they want to hear, what do they care about? And that's how you land a great message is, I think, and things like that. And I've taken some of those principles of just like, it's not about saying, okay, go here, click this button, click like this, use this keyword, do this exact thing. It's more so communication, how to communicate, effectively on each channel. And there's nuance to that, Walmart and Amazon aren't exactly the same. I'm working on the guys right now they're similar. They're very similar. I'm working on the guys right now on a blog article about the little small differences within the advertising between the two channels. It's little things, it's little buttons, little clicks, little ways that the modifiers work or the bids work or things like that. And so really trying to focus on the minute differences because that's the case. Just like human beings, you're in Texas, I'm in Missouri. There's certain cultural things to Texas that are unique to Texas. And if I was really trying to communicate well to the Texans, I'm going to implement some of those cultural differences when I'm trying to talk to them if I can, right? Same thing I think in the in Missouri. So I honestly get very passionate about what we're talking about. Is we can be talking about Amazon, but you can just talk all the tactics, but it's really the brand building, the storytelling, the like little tactical details like that I think is really what's missed by a lot of people I talk to.
Yeah, for sure. I know you talked about Walmart. I'm going to be speaking at a Prosper show on the topic of Walmart. I know you and I were talking about the various clients we have on Walmart. What are your views right now on what channels people should predominantly consider? When should they consider them? And any advice related to expanding beyond Amazon?
Yeah, so I'm an Amazon advocate first. Like that's the biggest channel. That's the one I would suggest, unless you're like in Canada and launching on Amazon Canada makes sense or something like that. Amazon US is the channel. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have said ignore eBay, ignore Walmart, ignore. Let's focus on Amazon, maybe Amazon Canada, maybe Amazon Australia. If it wasn't an Amazon branded channel, I was not an advocate. Fast forward to today, that's not how I feel today. Walmart has really grown as a channel that has legs and, has really sophisticated their marketplace. And along the way has come Instacart and Chewy.com and, Nordstrom and Home Depot and all of them, Target Plus. I talked to a Target customer yesterday. I'm saying all that to say, like, I've changed my mind. If you were like listening to me 5 years ago, because I think that the market has changed and what's good, and so not that Amazon Canada or Amazon Australia or some of these other Amazon channels are not great, but, starting with an Amazon.com strategy, getting yourself established, it makes a lot of sense with a low lift to go launch on Walmart as well. even more so, even easier, more so than, let's say, expanding internationally, which used to be kind of the suggestion I would give. And, picking which one to sell on, I think can also be like, hey, well, what's your budget look like? Where do your strengths lie? I think whenever you get outside of Amazon and Amazon International and Walmart, TikTok Shop, for example, is a completely different marketplace with a different skill set needed. And I think not enough people are saying that, and it needs to be said. Like, as someone I've been very successful on TikTok Shop. It is just a creator. You're building a brand. And if you're bad at storytelling, if you're behind the scenes and you're going to only rely on affiliates to tell your brand story, affiliates to be your creative, affiliates to go sell your product, good luck with that. I think you need to be a bit, your brand, your team need to be a bit of storytellers, be able to A/B test content, get in front of a camera. You have to A/B test and A/B test and A/B test. And for the creatives with time, huge opportunity. Okay. Like if that's your natural skill set, is you have a bunch of creatives and you guys are like, social media butterflies, like, okay. But a lot of Amazon sellers are data driven, data scientists, operational pros that are great at supply chain and inventory and sourcing. And a lot of Amazon success is not from being a great creative or a great creator or having that. So I just want to stress that I am pushing TikTok Shop and TikTok. Probably need a team to help you. You can't just go into affiliates first. You need to create like a brand voice at the bottom. Like, you need that brand presence of content and video. Then you can go out and get affiliates. Then you can go add people to it and have them creating for you. But just take that seriously. I guess that's something I want to try to say if you're thinking about that channel. Whereas Walmart, you can still you can have the same skill set as your team has on Amazon and be just fine. Or Amazon International, you can have the same skill set and be just fine, if that makes sense. TikTok Shop, you need to kind of have a bit of a different skill set, in my opinion, to be successful there, or at least like be able to push your limits. If you have a pet brand and can get into Chewy, I love Chewy as a pet channel. If you're a food brand and in retail, Instacart is crushing it for brands. And we talked about who's a good fit for Walmart. And in spite of just your team and what you're capable of, are your customers there? And for me, the way I describe it is, I grew up going to Walmarts, okay? Like, and trips back from Africa and whatever, I've always gone to Walmarts. And at Walmart, there's dog food, there's lawn and garden, there's grocery now, there's clothing, there's apparel, there's toys, there's games, there's outdoor, there's hunting supplies, fishing supplies. You could get bait and tackle in there. There's like, home decor, there's home goods. Like, these are categories that are in a Walmart. And I think if your product naturally fits into some of those categories that have been in Walmart for years and years, you're going to have a lot more success than a product that doesn't fit into one of those categories. And Amazon wasn't always like that, is becoming a better channel for like products that don't have a specific category. They can still do well there. Walmart, I do feel like, is getting the shoppers that are used to buying thing from Walmart, and maybe now they're buying a different your dog food instead of the other one there, or your Kleenexes instead of the other one there, or your puzzles instead of the other one there. But not really a product discovery platform. I think it's still pretty true to the categories they have. And the last note I'll say is, on the TikTok Shop side, one reason I've lost on Amazon through the years has been if there's not enough product demand, keyword search volume for a product. Like, it's too innovative. It's too much of an invention. It's too much. There's not like search demand, because Amazon is driven so much by keyword search, direct response, right? Well, TikTok, like Instagram used to be, but even better, TikTok is the one where you can get your video in front of a demographic that they might not have been looking for what you're selling, but they see a video, they see the invention because they're of a certain age demographic, interests, and all of a sudden they're interested in it. And while they weren't looking for a fidget spinner, now a fidget spinner is in front of them. It looks really cool. It's talking about ADHD and anxiety and, impulse control and things like that. And that's something that's relevant because the industry is getting pushed tons on mental health. And now you're selling a product that's auxiliary or adjacent to mental health and ADHD and things like that. And now your product's getting discovered and you're selling. And you can use even TikTok, let's say, to push that traffic to Amazon where no one was searching for fidget spinner before fidget spinner came out. You know what I'm saying? Like there was awareness around it. And so those have been some of the times where I felt like I had an amazing product, but just there weren't enough people looking for what we were trying to sell, working with an inventor or something like that. And it was like, look, we got to drive traffic from Facebook or Instagram. And now TikTok's out. And with TikTok Shop, I do feel like if you have a product that you feel like fits in that category, TikTok Shop, even over Amazon, might be the place to start for an invention type product. So that's a mouthful, but I have a lot of thoughts on omni-channel, and it's really just about, are your customers there?
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? It's prioritization, it's selection where your customers are, and then it's execution. So like, I agree with you. You got to start on Amazon. It's the 800-pound gorilla. Why would you not put all of your effort into there? I like to say get 80 to 90% where you need to be on Amazon, meaning you're now doing A/B testing and things like that, but you pretty much got it figured out and you're just making it better. Now start shifting onto other domestic marketplaces, Walmart, Target, eBay. A lot of times you can use some very simple, feed managers. You could use Shopify Marketplace Connect. You could use, Channel Advisor, now Rhythm, different Feedonomics, other tools like that to easily shift your catalog and coordinate your orders and inventory information between those marketplaces to get on those relatively easy. Like literally, you could have your business live in just a couple of days on those marketplaces. You just don't want to jump the gun. What I find where people make mistakes is they say, I want to be everywhere. And now they realize that, their main image was bad. The A+ content needs reworked. Now they're doing all of that across all these marketplaces, and they're spending too much of their team's time doing things on marketplaces that are going to have a very little impact to their overall business. So you've got to make sure that your team's like really focused on, Amazon being your number one storefront outside of your own e-commerce website, of course, or your stores. And then, lift and shift, but don't just flow the exact same content to those other marketplaces or you're going to fail. Algorithmically, they're all different. They're looking for different things, but it's not rocket science. Like Walmart gives you a listing quality score. Just tweak it based on what it's suggesting and you're golden, and it'll tell you essentially what it wants to be algorithmically what they're looking for. And then there's multiple components. One is the offer, like your price, and one's your speed of shipping. So you can solve for that with WFS. So as long as you got those three pillars, content, offer, and shipping, you can get your listing quality score way high, algorithmically show up much better. And then you start, that becomes a new incremental sales channel. And even eBay, as small as it is these days,
for the right products.
For the right products, and even if it's a couple extra percentage of your business to basic, there's not a lot that you have to really do. It's not very cumbersome to maintain your listing.
We've got advertising now. That's new. As an eBay partner, like we basically have one automotive client that's like automotive is still huge on eBay.
Huge.
So, executing ads with them with eBay partnership and pioneering some of that. They have a new agency program. So if you are in vintage cards or vintage collectibles or automotive or arts and crafts or a few of those categories, like eBay can be a great channel for you. The same thing if you have like Etsy. I actually got my start with my very first brand I built, an apparel company, Landlocked. It was like kind of based on Kansas City pride and things like that. And I sold my very first I posted my first tweet on Twitter. It got picked up by Arrowhead Pride, which is an ESPN partnered Chiefs blog. Okay, so it's like private but ESPN powered, and the host that was on Facebook and Twitter and had all these things just reposted my Etsy link that I put in the tweet of a t-shirt I was making, and I sold 350 orders from a tweet. And I learned the power of social media and virality. And I can tell you, I used to be kind of a hater. But like, as I started trying to get good at this game, I really started embracing it as an opportunity, to build a brand. And Etsy, and with Etsy, I was doing all the things that we do on Amazon today. I was asking anyone that wanted to buy from me locally. I'm like, can you go to Etsy and buy it and leave me a review? Like, I would really love a review on that channel. And I think so many times people launch Walmart, for example, but they're not putting the same time and effort into tweaking it that they did on Amazon. And I'm like, look, it's still a channel. You can drive YouTube traffic to it or Google traffic to it, or send your friends there to leave a review and make a purchase from you. Like within terms of service, you know what I'm saying? Send that customer to Walmart. Don't just send them to Amazon. Like, treat it like a channel you're trying to officially launch as well. Give it that extra juice, just like we would on Amazon, like we've talked about for years. That's something that I think enough people aren't talking about, is what are all the extra little levers you can pull to make Walmart a channel too? Not just the setup and letting it execute and being a couple orders, but like, are you pushing anything to Walmart just like we did to Amazon in the early days? Or are we just kind of relying on it to be its own channel, and Target quickly becoming another great one. If you have a product that fits into one of the niche marketplaces though, like, and I would say niche, like you have a tool and you can be on homedepot.com, or you have a pet product, you can be on chewy.com. These things, those like specific marketplaces, I think are really special and kind of underrated, because there's not agencies that are existing putting out content on I'm just a Target agency, I'm just an Instacart agency. There might be a couple now, but there's not a lot like there is in the Amazon space pioneering it. But I think it's a big opportunity for brands on some of those smaller, more niche, specific marketplaces.
I've been surprised that, Home Depot and Lowe's have both embraced marketplaces, and they've embraced e-commerce and omni-channel shopping, and the quantities that they sell on some items is really astonishing. They now are, at least I think it's Home Depot, is displaying the quantity sold in the last week or month or whatever, and for the right products, it's a gold mine. But they also have a lot of fringe items that, if it's the product that's not in demand, you're going to struggle to move it there like you would anywhere else. But you're right. Again, it goes back to, are you where your customers are spending their time and money? If your customers are looking for your product there, you're going to have better success. I mean, even Walmart, like you said, there used to be a lot of brands that were very hesitant to want to be on Amazon, Walmart, eBay. It was like, those are not good images for their brand. I think most of that has gone by the wayside, but there's still a relevancy of, is the consumer going there? Like, if I was going to buy a really high-end big screen TV, I'm probably not going to walk in a Walmart looking for it. I might go to a Best Buy or a higher end audio video store. Same thing. You may see some success. There's no harm necessarily to be there, but if you're in a value price product and a category where people are shopping, especially if it's an add-on to like grocery shopping, like I'm grocery shopping, I'm going to have my groceries delivered from Walmart. Now I can add on this other item that I also wanted and have it delivered the same day. That's a huge win. And you got to make sure that you're paying attention to those use cases and catering to them.
Yeah, I think one thing that people don't think about is, at least here in the Midwest, there's a lot of towns where Walmart is the go-to store.
Yeah.
And there's now Walmart pickup where you can drive up and pick it up. And it's a grocery store for a lot of communities. And so Amazon has food and has Amazon Fresh in some cities and things like that. But I think there's like 10,000 Walmarts in the nation versus 200 fulfillment centers for Amazon, for context, right? And at scale, that's 10,000 is powerful in the sub communities. And so you can, maybe in the city, it's Amazon, but in all the rural areas, which makes up a lot of America, there, I can see a lot of people getting their groceries from Walmart for pickup or delivery or whatever the case is. And then where maybe they would have went to Amazon and bought that trinket or that thing, they're going to buy it from Walmart this time because they're already grabbing essential items like groceries and things like that. And so it's a really, try to get outside yourself. You're building a brand in Chicago and you're thinking Chicago because everyone thinks through their lens of their eyes and, whatever. But there's a whole lot of other scenarios. Like for me with fashion, I like trying to wear different styles and fashion items and things like that. I grew up in Africa. I got a little bit of that in me. And, I there's not that many men's boutique or unique stores here in Kansas City. You know, we have kind of some of the chain stores, but besides that, if I want to get anything unique, I'm online, you know. I think that's the same case, like for the big cities versus the small cities. I'm considered probably a small, medium-sized city in America. I don't know, 2 million in KC, but there's not that much fashionable stuff. That means that me and everyone like me in these places is going online to buy that. And so many people are like, oh, I don't know if people are going to buy men's bow ties on Amazon or this or that. And you'd be surprised. Not every community is like yours. And people still want to have that opportunity to be able to shop, be able to try new things, be able to, like, you know, and now that the world's becoming much smaller with e-commerce, it's just always a reminder that, like, I am not my customer, you know, and like we always think through us. We try to step outside of it. And I think that's why an agency partner can be helpful, is because agency partners spend all day, every day, putting ourselves in other shoes to be able to help brands versus, like, you know, you've got that one track mind. I do think that that's one of the main value adds that we can bring to customers, is we have for a decade plus been trying to pull ourselves back, have a neutral position, ask the right questions about the content, the messaging. You know, I work with so many brands where their images and their text, to them, people in their world, is assumed common knowledge. Like, you know, the way the traction device, or like they're using some kind of word that the only way you know what a traction device does for a neck or a back is if you're already been going to the doctor, or you're a doctor, or you're in chiropractic school, or, like, you know, otherwise for the common person, I need you to explain to me that traction means, you know, pulling out compression from your neck or your back. Like, that needs to be explained to me like common knowledge, you know? And so many times that's happening with the way people think, to bring it full circle, is like with their content or the way they're messaging their product or what platform they're on. It's like, look, like, you are not your audience a lot of times, especially if you build a product wasn't for you, like you did it to solve a problem with a family member or something like that, because a lot of times that can help them get a lot closer. But when they're really close to the item, it's really like, do you really understand why everyone might be buying from Walmart just because they want to be a Walmart customer over an Amazon customer? Well, no, there's 10,000 Walmarts, you know, around the country. Just for context, I saw Amazon send me, I made an order, and Kansas City's just starting to get that same day delivery thing going, I think. And there's a whole bunch of food items that they sent me. Do you want to add any of these food items to your order? And that was the first time. I mean, I've been testing this Amazon platform forever. I'd never been offered all the fresh fruit items and things like that. But that's that Walmart's been doing for years, and that customer is trained in that. Like, you know, so yeah. It's an aspect of selling on Walmart that I don't think a lot of people talk about, is just that for a lot of communities, it's their everything store.
Yeah. I mean, if the customers are walking in a store day in, day out, time and time again, they're top of mind. When they think of something that they need, they're going to go there. And that's why Amazon's been such a game changer, is people, they didn't behave like e-commerce where they would add a bunch of items to their cart, make an occasional purchase. They're buying one item this hour and another item a couple hours from now. I mean, they're just on Amazon constantly. As soon as something comes to mind, you're buying it. Well, you know, Walmart has the brick and mortar advantage where you're constantly running in. You need something, you just tend to think about it, especially, like I said, if you're tying it onto a grocery purchase or something like that. But this has been great, Andrew. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about Marknology? What are your services and how can they reach you?
Yeah. So if you're going to be at the Prosperous Show, I'd love to meet you. I'm just going to be walking. I don't have a booth, but there's not that many red beards, you know, red bearded guys. So if you see me, please say hello. I'm speaking on Thursday morning on a panel with a couple of amazing agency owners. We're just talking about brand excellence. And I think we're all just sharing some stories of failures and successes with brands and what we see some of the best players doing. So would love to have you in attendance if you're there. Can contact me on LinkedIn, Andrew Morgans, or on Marknology, my website, marknology.com. I'm also pushing my YouTube a lot right now. If you just want to be more passive instead of reaching out and just follow some content, would love to have you there. You know, I do a lot of this, sure, to grow my business, but just because I love the community and I love chatting with sellers and people doing what I'm doing and what I've done for the last decade. It's just a lot of our community is online. So please reach out. Marknology is a full, what we call a full service marketplace agency. Like I said, certified in TikTok Shop, eBay, Walmart, Amazon. But we do, a lot of us we're known for doing a lot of creative work, but mainly because I've been pushing creative, like I talked about. I've been talking about brands really needing to level up their communication, not just pretty stuff, but effective communicating graphics. Rufus coming in has made that a big point too, to make sure your graphics just have strong keywords and relevance. But we do it all. So set up, transitions from 1P to 3P, PPC, SEO, listing creation, catalog management. A lot of people are doing it themselves and just want a little help here and there, we can do a la carte. We're also we're a fractional team and we like working with teams. I think that's, we're really good at team and all things team. So, if that seems like a fit for you, would love to hear from anybody. I'm building my own brands, so that's something we can connect about too. If it's not even about the agency stuff, it's like, I've got 7 or 8 smaller brands I'm building. I have a warehouse in 3PL as well here in Kansas City, so plenty to do all the time. But I'm trying to learn and be an expert at all areas of e-commerce, and really understand the ecosystem that is building a successful brand with e-commerce is kind of the go-to. And it really starts with, a good product, but then it starts quickly into supply chain and your warehousing and how you're packaging the products. And then it's how do you sell it? And then how do you follow up with your customers and keep them? It's all elements of that. So, Steve, thanks for having me on the show. This was great. Just getting to talk shop. It's been a pleasure, and I'd love to be back soon and kind of catch you up on what's been going on.
That sounds great. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate your time.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.